everyone, I'm Jody Hand, Mrs. Hand Painted, and welcome to my channel here on YouTube. If you've been following along with my latest videos, you know that I've been doing a lot of Christmas cards for Christmas in July series. So if you are looking to get a head start on your Christmas greeting cards, make sure you check those videos out. They're there in the playlist called Christmas in July watercolor cards. And in today's video, I'll be getting away from the Christmas videos again here and returning back to just some regular old everyday watercolor. And in this video today, we'll be doing a little sunset with a windmill silhouette. This one's really fun, and I'll show you an easy way that you can transfer your drawing onto a watercolor block, since we wouldn't be able to trace or use a light pad to transfer design over. So this would be a nice way to give you a little cheat if you're not really great at drawing, but you want to paint a silhouette of something. And I'll share the link to my reference photo that I used as well. I put that in the description for you. So if you want to use this exact photo, I do have that in the description for you. Otherwise, you could use the same technique for any kind of sunset picture that has a silhouette. If you didn't want to do a windmill, maybe you want to do cattails or some other kind of foliage. Other structures like a building, something like a barn maybe, you could really apply this method to any kind of silhouette sunset type picture, or just anything that would have that dark foreground image with the sunset or a blurred background behind it. So you can kind of apply this to anything. I think even doing kind of a sunset picture at the beach, you could do a palm tree coming off the front and do the silhouette of a palm tree. Would be a really pretty application of this method as well. So have fun painting along with me, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you do, and I will have fun painting with me. All right, I'll just quickly go over my supplies that I'm going to use today. This is a Fabriano Artistico block, size 5x7, and I'm using the rough grain. Today, I'd like using that rough grain for landscapes. Just gives a little bit more texture than the traditional cold press paper. So, but if you don't have rough paper, cold press is just fine. But I do recommend doing 100% cotton. And I really like using these blocks for landscapes because then your paper stays glued down along the edges and it doesn't curl up. If you don't have a block and you just have loose sheets of paper, you'll want to tape down all sides of your paper around onto like a piece of cardboard or to your desk, or although the cardboard will be easier to do so that you can move your paper around and it's not stuck on the desk. So keep that in mind when you are choosing your paper for a landscape. I have a reference photo here that I just found on Pinterest. It said it was a windmill in Kansas at sunset. I'm just going to use this to kind of transfer the windmill shape because I'm not super confident in my sketching skills to be able to draw that very easily. So I'm just going to use some carbon paper or graphite paper. This one side is kind of dull. That's the back side, and the shiny side has got the graphite on it that's been smoothed across the transfer paper. So we'll put that shiny side down onto our paper, and then I'll use something hard like a pencil or a pen to trace across the top. And I did trim this picture here just so that I could find the corner on here and line it up. Just make it a little easier for myself to transfer onto my paper. So I sized that image just on my computer, and I printed it off so that I could get that the size of my paper and just transfer this. And I'm not going to do anything but the windmill for the transfer part. I'm just going to paint this part in. And normally I don't like to do this, especially if some of my elements are going to be lighter colored, because as you'll notice with this graphite paper, it does put a very dark mark on your paper, and if you're going to be painting in lighter colors, it is difficult to cover it or get that to disappear, and you'll end up with your pencil or your graphite line showing through. But in this case, I'm using this because I'm going to be painting that black, and it'll cover up any of the graphite that I have transferred. Some brushes that I'm going to be using today, I have these Princeton Neptune series brushes I really like. This is the 1/2-inch wash brush, or just a flat brush. This is the round 8 and a round 4 in the Neptune series. And then I have one of my favorite brushes that you see me use a lot is this 1/4 inch dagger striper from the Princeton Velvetouch series. I really like this one because it's really tiny up here, and it's going to be perfect for doing some of these little grass textures down here at the bottom. And I'll show you how we can use that specialty brush to do that at the bottom. And then I just have some other general supplies. I've got my paint palette that's covered in all my leftover paint. I've got my Daniel Smith watercolors, but use whatever colors you want. This one's going to be pretty few amount of colors, and I'll show you mostly using like some yellow and brown and then of course black. Maybe a little bit of, well, I guess looks like some orange colors we'll have to use here. And I've got my water bucket here. I'll show you that. This is just a plastic water bucket I bought from Jerry's Artarama, but I've seen them at places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's. Any of those kind of big box craft stores have them for a few dollars. And I have one side that is my dirty water that I'll be washing my brush out in, and I've got my clean side for getting clean water for my washes. And I really like that. Instead of using jars, seems to be less of a tip over hazard for me because I am a klutz. And I've just got some paper towel here to dry my brushes off with. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start by just doing our transfer of our design, and you can reuse this over and over. I'm not sure if you can really see, but there's some little lines you can kind of see from previous times of me using this, so it's reusable. I mean, I bought a pack of, I think it was 10 sheets, and I still have only used maybe 1 or 2 sheets out of here, and I think the only reason I used 2 that time is because I had a really large piece I was transferring, and I needed 2 pieces to cover the really big paper. So it will last you a long time. Okay, I'm just going to use a pencil to just go over this, and you don't need to press very hard. I'm going to just trace right over top of my picture I printed off. So I just did this on regular copy paper and printed off a design here just so I could get the lines. There just seems to be a lot of like little details along here from all these little metal bars that go across this windmill. And if you don't want to do all of these lines that are in there, go ahead and just do whichever parts you want. And if you want to use my picture that I found, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video here so that you can find this picture as well if you want to do the same one. Otherwise, I mean, I just did a search on Pinterest for windmill sunset, and you'll find a ton of pictures to go off of for a reference. I do like using a pencil or a pen to transfer stuff like this, because then you can actually see where you've gone before, wherever you've left a pencil mark, instead of just using like a nib or something that just depresses into it, because then you won't be able to see where you did your previous marks as easily. I'm not getting too precise here, so I'll generally just go over that all with paint and I'll be able to see. Okay, I think that's good enough. There we go. You can see that does pretty dark, and I mean, it's not perfect looking, it's not really straight lines. I just wanted the general marks of where that is. I'm just going to move my paper off to the side there. I don't need that anymore, and I'll just move my picture over here just to kind of give myself a little reference point. I also have it up on my computer too, so this is still pretty dark, and if you really want to remove some of that extra, I mean, I didn't try to press too hard. You can use a kneaded eraser to try to pick some of that up, but like I said, this gets really dark. And I didn't even press all that hard, and you can't pick up everything, but you can make it a little bit lighter and get some of the excess. You have to be very careful here. I did get on this rough paper, sometimes it does, if you put your hand down too hard on it, you might get some extra rubbings of the graphite on your paper. So I'm just kind of lift some of that up, but mostly we'll cover that up with paint. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to do the background first. We don't need to worry about going over the top of this because it's going to be black on top of it, and anything that we go over that will get covered up. And what's nice about this graphite paper too is that it doesn't wash away. Like if we used a watercolor pencil to dry it, or a graphite water soluble graphite pencil like I use a lot, that would completely disappear after I washed over it, so, or be very, very faint. All right, so I'm just using my wash brush, and I'm getting this whole paper wet, evenly wet. So just take a look at it, make sure you don't have any puddles, any super wet spots that will end up giving you a bloom from having too much water sitting in. All right, so down here in our picture, we've got our sun, like the white point, which is about right here. So I'm just gonna kind of avoid that area. Maybe we'll do a really pale yellow right there. And then there's yellow streaks with orange, and it kind of fades up into that blue that's like bluish orange. I think I'm going to do a little bit of lemon yellow and see what that looks like, just to start. And I'm still using that wash brush here. I'm just going to use this brush kind of on its side, because in my picture it's got just like kind of these little streaky clouds going across, so we can go across like this. Like I just like to turn my paper, give myself a little bit easier of a time here. And then we can do a little circle area here. Just kind of go around that. And then I'm going to take my paper towel, just kind of bunch that up a little bit so that I can make my white circle that has a very, very pale yellow to it. All right, now I'm going to switch over to a little bit of an orange mix. So I'm going to take that same lemon yellow I had mixed up here, and I'm going to take a little bit of this Quinacridone rose. All right, I think I had some yellow ochre mixed in that corner before. All right, now I just got an orange color. I just mixed together a pinkish color with that red, or that with the yellow, excuse me. And I'm just going to go same with this flat brush. I'm just going to mix this in. I don't need to do all the way at the bottom here. That's where our grasses are going to be. So just kind of make those horizontal lines going across, and you can leave a little bit of white here and there if you want. Just make some of those streaks. All right, so now I'm going to add a little bit more pink in with that Quinacridone rose. As I go up, I'll get a little more pink, and then we'll transition into the blue. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine. I'm going to mix a little bit of my orange in there. It's going to give me kind of a gray color here. I'll just kind of bring that all together here. And then as we get up here, it's going to be more solid, less of the streaky clouds. And if your paper starts to dry a little bit too much, you can just add a little bit more clean water in there, and then add your color in. We don't want that to get too dry, because then you won't have that smooth background. You'll get some streaks that you don't want. I'm just going to carry a little bit of that down here, a little bit more. Go back to my orange. All right, and I think I want to do maybe just a little bit, just going to wipe away a little bit more of that. I'm going to go back to my lemon yellow here. Just add a little bit more, just to brighten that up. I'm just going to go around where my sun was. And some of that will go over the top with the grass, like in the picture here. Okay, it's looking really, really pretty. I'm going to do another little bit of this kind of gray blue we made with that orange and the ultramarine. Just get a little more blue in there. Just do a little bit more up here. There we go. All right, now I'm going to let that dry so that we can do our black over the top of this. There's my background. Now I'm just going to fill in the silhouette of this, and we'll do our grasses. And since I don't want those to bleed all over the place, we got to dry it. All right, I know I said I had a 4 and an 8 here, but I think I'm actually going to use this 2 instead. I'll put that in the comments so you don't get messed up there. All right, so now we're going to do black. And I've got an ivory black here. And if you don't have a black watercolor, you could do black gouache. or acrylic that you water down a little bit too. All right, I was gonna pop that out of there, but it's stuck in there pretty good. All right, get this other little plate over here. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and start out just by filling in my windmill. Basically just go over your drawing that you put on there, and then we'll do the grass for the last step. Okay, I do not like using that. I'm gonna use one. I got a Princeton Velvetouch round 1. Should have just done that from the beginning. Okay. I know that too will hold a lot more paint and water, but it's hard to do all of those little details with a little bit bigger brush. You could even do a black alcohol marker, or I think a brush marker would work good too, like a Tombow marker. Like one of those would work. Just for this part, not for the grass. The grass you will want to paint. And we're going to use that dagger brush for that part. All right, now for some of these straight lines, you want to keep a nice steady hand, and it's very helpful to rest your arm, your forearm, your wrist on the desk or your table. So if you don't have a very large area, find something that you can rest your hand on that'll help you keep your hand nice and steady when you're doing straight lines like this. Okay, now for the really fun part. All right, I'm going to take my bigger round 8 brush that I had, or you could use that same flat wash brush, just to get a bunch more of this black. I do like to use a bigger brush to get my paint ready for my dagger brush, so that I'm not ruining the bristles on that specialty brush by digging it into your pans, especially this black one here. I'm getting quite the little crater in the paint. So I want to do that so that I don't ruin that brush. I'm also just going to add a whole little wash here along the bottom of black, just like in the picture, and then we'll use our dagger brush to kind of add all of our tall grasses. So I'm just going to use the point of that and just have that kind of come up in a few little areas, just to give myself some little more little textures besides those really fine grasses. So these are going to give me kind of a mark of where my grasses are going to come out from. Okay, trying to just kind of follow along my reference picture a little bit. There's some taller grasses here. There's this weird, I don't know if that's supposed to be like a telephone pole in the background right there, or like a big stick or something, but I'm not going to do that in there. That's not getting into my picture. I don't like that. Okay, so switching over to my dagger brush. Remember, I've got my paint, I got a whole bunch ready to go here on my palette using my big brush so that I don't ruin my nice point I have here. Alright, so I've got like some little tufts here, so just using that really fine point and a really light touch, and just kind of add in some little grasses here really finely. And I can go sweeping up to get some taller grasses. I mean, I don't have to do it exactly like they do. This looks like it's probably like a tree or something in the background, so I'm just going to make a line coming up and then just do some little kind of almost dots. Just dabbing my brush down here. Just gives you a little, if you just want to use your little round brush, that would work too for this application, but I just really like the texture I get. It's just a little bit different from the dagger brush. And we'll have maybe a little bit come here from behind, just kind of dabbing some lines here. And I'll sweep up and give myself some more grasses. I'll get some grasses over here. Like a little bush maybe. I'm not going to cover up too much of my sun there. I just have a little bit going in front of it. Just kind of disappear down into our main color block area here. I'm just making a line going up, and then I just kind of along that line, I'm adding some little dabs to be like those little grass textures. I'm just kind of fading down into my my solid color here down at the bottom. Kind of change up the angle of your grass blades here too a little bit, or just kind of mix it up a little bit. I'm just going to fade off on the edge of my paper here. I'm going to add just a little bit more here. All right. There we go. I'm just going to give that a really quick dry, just make sure all my black get dried up, and then we'll see how it turned out. That turned out really pretty, guys. I hope you had fun painting along with me, and if you made one of these sunset pictures and want to share it with me, please tag me on Instagram. You can find me there, Mrs. Hand Painted, or just share your all right, we'll call that good.